Pratiksha, can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can. I
Yeah.
call the meeting to order.
Yeah, thank you. And I welcome all of you. I first would like to thank our speaker, today's speaker, Mike McGovern, who immediately accepted my invitation to speak on such a wonderful topic of polio. And to start with, I would request past President Smita Sinha to recite the four-way test, please. Smita, you can recite the four-way test, please.
Fair. Just a minute.
It's there on the screen, you can just recite.
Yeah. Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendship? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you.
Thank you. Now I would request President Murli Sundarani ji to recite the objects of Rotary. Yeah, Murli ji, please.
Yeah, good evening, good afternoon, all of you. So I have the objective of Rotary as follows. The objective of Rotary is to encourage and foster the ideal of service as a basis of worthy enterprise, and in particular to encourage and foster the development of acquaintance as an opportunity for service. High ethical standards in business and professions, the recognition of worthiness of all useful occupations, and the dignifying by each Rotarian of his or her occupation as an opportunity to serve the society. The application of the ideal of service by every Rotarian to their personal, business, and community life. The advancement of international understanding, goodwill, and peace through a world fellowship and professional persons united in the ideal of service. So Rotary is an international organization composed by business and professional leaders that give humanitarian services. It encourages the high rules of ethics in all of the occupations and contributes to the development of goodwill and peace around the world. Currently, we have approximately 1.2 million Rotarians voluntarily working in 31,000 Rotary Clubs that operate in 166 countries. And primarily, the objective of Rotary is to promote peace, fighting disease, providing clean water, sanitation and hygiene, saving mothers and children, and supporting education. So that's it from my side.
Thank you, Murli ji. And now I would request Charter President Sayyeda to kindly introduce our today's guest.
Thank you, PP Vijay. Head Governor has served as the chair of the Rotary International Polio Plus Committee since October 2014. He has also represented Rotary on the Polio Oversight Board, which governs the Global Polio Eradication Initiative, partnership, and chairs its Finance and Accountability Committee. Mike is the global chair of the Rotary Leadership Institute and formerly chaired the Rotary Leadership Institute of Northeast America. He joined Rotary in 1986 as a member of the Rotary Club of South Portland, Cape Elizabeth, Maine, USA. After serving as a director governor in 1999-2000, he served in many Rotary positions, including as a Rotary Director and Vice President of the Rotary International. As a trustee and vice chair of the Rotary Foundation, he led Rotary's rezoning efforts in 2007 and 8. In 2017-18, he was chair of the RI Membership Committee and has chaired the Rotary Action Group for Family Health and AIDS Prevention. He served his entire career with the town of Cape Elizabeth, Maine, USA, beginning as an intern in 1977 and serving as town manager for 31 years until his retirement in 2016. Mike led Maine cities and towns as president of the Maine Municipal Association and served as the president of the Maine Town and City Management Association. Please join me to welcome Mac Governor.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Charter President Sayeda ji. Mike, the floor is yours. You have 25 minutes.
Thank you very much. I'm reaching you today from a place called Cape Elizabeth, Maine. Maine is in the northeast United States, about 100 miles from Boston. And we think of it as a beautiful place, but I think everyone thinks of where they live as a beautiful place. But wonderful to be with you today in India. What I'd like to do is talk a little bit about our goal, and then move on to some of the challenges where we stand now and how we're going to work together to eradicate polio. I think everyone on this call is probably aware that Rotary has been trying to eradicate polio for some time. We do it with a number of partners, from including UNICEF, the World Health Organization, the Gates Foundation, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control, an outfit called Gavi in Geneva, and also truly with the governments of the world all over. It really takes a team effort, and it begins, I think, with Rotary. We were the ones that got this started. We're often called the spearheading partner, and Bill Gates himself calls us the heart and soul of the polio eradication movement. So what our goal is, from the very beginning, there's been a little bit confusion about it. And, it's, as things developed, there are really two major types of polio. One is the wild polio virus, that which was endemic in India until about 15 years ago, and endemic when Rotary began this effort in 125 countries around the world. Which meant that it was continuously, in the environment, and that people were suffering from polio in 125 countries. The wild polio virus is now endemic in 2 countries, not too far at all from India, in Pakistan and Afghanistan. In those 2 countries, it's never disappeared. It's come close to disappearing, but it just has, for various reasons, have been elusive for decades now. And I'll go into that in a little bit more. We also have a second type of polio that was often called circulating vaccine-derived polio, and that has caused a lot of confusion, that name, because people think that the people get the vaccine and then they get polio, and that's not true. People that get the vaccine aren't getting polio from the vaccine. But what happens is there are some people who choose not to get polio vaccinations at all. They also choose not to get vaccinations for anything. They're in your country, I'm sure they're called anti-vaccine, the anti-vaccine movement, vaccine hesitancy, and it's present all over the world. But individuals whose immune systems aren't strengthened because they're getting no vaccines have been coming down with something called vaccine-derived polio, or a polio variant case, or we call them polio variant cases. And I'm going to share, I think, just one slide. We'll see if we can do that right here. Yeah, so, there's a lot of myths out there in terms of, overall where we stand. And, it's for those that follow polio eradication very, very closely, there's a perception that we have a lot more cases out there, and we do. We have a lot more of the wild polio virus cases. The wild polio virus cases, again, are all in Pakistan and Afghanistan at this point. We had a couple in Mozambique and one in Malawi a few years ago, 9 in total in those countries. But it's in those 2 countries. We only had 6 cases in Pakistan and 6 cases in Afghanistan last year. This year, we have now 50 in Pakistan. The number on the chart says 49. The official reports say 49, but the press reports have identified another case in Tank district. So we have the 50 in Pakistan and 23. So an increase from 12 to 73 is not good, and very disappointing. I think we all hoped that that it would be better than that. But the hidden piece is we have these polio variant cases, the vaccine-derived cases. And those reached a peak of 1,253 cases in 2020. You can see they've been growing. We only had 5 in 2016. Excuse me, we had 1,113 was the peak in 2020, but we started with 5. And basically part of it is, there were probably a lot more of these cases, but we didn't have the surveillance that we needed. We didn't have the testing. We didn't have the reporting. And now we have that. We have excellent surveillance laboratories all over the world, but particularly in the critical areas. There's about 165 of them. So we're identifying more of those cases. So if you look overall, last year for all types of polio cases, we had 540. This year we have 296. And why I'm emphasizing these numbers and showing this slide is that just a reminder that our goal is the eradication of all polio cases. That includes both the polio variant cases and the wild polio virus cases. So while, the other big factor is that, if a kid comes down with polio, be it from a wild polio virus or from one of these polio variant cases, it's the exact same results to that particular youngster, that particular child. They come down with polio and all the bad aspects of polio. There is absolutely no difference. For neither disease is there a cure. There's treatments one can do. There's mobility assistive devices that one can provide. But if they come down with polio, they come down with polio. We also, I do want to add at this point, we also see, although the numbers aren't tracked, is people late in life oftentimes will have had polio as a child. And, I'm sure there's many of these cases in India. There's quite a few here in my own country. And what happens is they were one of the many who got the polio virus as a child. But it never manifested itself. It never, people didn't come down with any symptoms. They carried it in their system. They had the ability to spread it. But what's happened with quite a few people around the world is they now have something called post-polio syndrome, which is that they're having the effects and the impacts of polio at a much later age. I found out just about a month ago, a woman who was my mother's first cousin. She was my godmother when she was like 13, 14 years old. She came into, I was working temporarily in my old job to help out the interim. She came into my office one day and told me that her brother, my mother's first cousin, had recently been identified with post-polio syndrome. It was interesting. This is on my maternal grandmother's side of the family. And I always thought that my mother was interested in polio eradication. She raised money for something called the March of Dimes to help fund polio research years ago. It was always because a cousin on her father's side of the family had come down with polio, one of her first cousins. But, lo and behold, here it is. I'm 68 years old now. And it's only, in the last couple of months, we've found out that someone else in the family who's older than me, obviously, who's in his 80s, also now is suffering with the impacts of polio. So we have these 3 types. So our goal is to get rid of all types of polio. While the focus always has been on the wild polio virus, those are the numbers that everyone tends to focus on. It's all types of polio. So, in my view, we're making progress. We are going down, but, there was a movie back in 1950. I don't know if any of you remember the American actress Bette Davis, but she was in. There was a famous song, Bette Davis Eyes. Some of you may remember that song. But anyway, she was in a movie called All About Eve, and in fact, she just by coincidence she lived about a mile from me, from where I'm sitting right now. For much of that time when she did that movie, and for about a decade. But she said. Back in 1950, and I think she's referring to airplanes, not cars, fasten your seatbelts. There's going to be a bumpy road tonight. That's exactly where we are right now. We're in a bumpy road, a bumpy period, and that bumpy road, bumpy period is primarily in Pakistan and Afghanistan. as well as is in Nigeria, in a couple of other places with these polio variant cases. What we have in common in all the places we have, at least 85% of them, 85% of the places we have polio, they're areas with a strong militancy. There's violence against the government. There's places like the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, northern Nigeria, Pakistan, and the old what they referred to as the FATA, the federally administrated tribal areas, in Afghanistan. I think you all know there, and obviously in Gaza at this point. But that's where the cases are. So, to get down to zero, it's pretty clear to us that one, we need to zero in on these critical geographies, these very difficult places where it is to sometimes get folks to cooperate, where polio workers are attacked, and even more specifically, where the people who are attacked are the security workers who are protecting the polio workers, that's number one, is we need to do workarounds where we have these activities of militancy and terrorism and outright war, which is the case in Gaza at this point. But it's so let me run through. And the other thing is, in the end, but I'll touch on that. We need to reach every child. We weren't back when India was at the end of having its polio cases. It was Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, and we were not reaching every child. We reached out to the community, particularly to some of the religious leaders. I'm not talking me. I'm talking about the Indians in the Rotarians in India did it. They reached out to all interests, all parties. They negotiated access to be able to vaccinate the kids, and in India it was interesting. 2 years before there were 0 cases, there were about 940, and there was a precipitous drop because suddenly they were able to work with all these groups and have all of the parents present their child for vaccines. It's often a forgotten fact of the fact that India did have so many cases just prior to ending polio, and so even though the numbers look a little bleak, as I sit here today, as you sit there in your communities, there is progress, there is hope, but there are some things, quite frankly, that need to happen in order to get this done. So let me do a little geographic tour. Let me start with Pakistan. I know Pakistan and India aren't the best of friends. It's been a long-running issue, and sometimes I see hesitancy, to be honest, in India with not everyone, but with some, with very suspicious of what's going on in Pakistan. I understand that there's a long history there, but Pakistan, has come close at different times to getting rid of polio. At least it would seem to be close. At one point, surveillance, the laboratory system wasn't as good, but it's good now. I think there's more laboratories to detect polio in Pakistan now than anywhere. But what happened is there was a lot of violence against polio workers, and there were lots of immunizations, huge investment in Pakistan. But up in that what was the federally administered tribal area, up in KP, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, excuse my pronunciations, but in particularly North Waziristan, southern KP, the polio was never disappeared from that area. As I said, polio workers were tremendously attacked. The government in Islamabad had almost no control over that area, and basically they needed to go in and to break up the Al Qaeda group that was there, that was an off branch of Al Qaeda, and go in and essentially break things up with military action. That happened very controversially, but they did it, and we still have mostly good cooperation there. But if you look at the detailed analysis of the cases, you could go to the Pakistan polio website. You'll see that is where almost all the cases were. And it was people just weren't presenting their kids for immunizations. There were refusals. There was poor performance on the part of the campaigns. There was fake finger marking, where some of the workers were claiming they had immunized kids and they hadn't. And eventually, Rotary and our partners said enough's enough. This is ridiculous. We're making huge investments. It's a risk to the rest of the world, and it needs to improve. And what's happened is, if you look at the cases now, yeah, there are still a few of those 73 cases in KP, but they were primarily earlier this calendar year. But the cases, what happened was, there was this huge focus on southern KP, on this area I've been describing. And what then happened just below it is Baluchistan, the Quetta block. And what happened? They took their eye off the ball. They would cancel immunization days because the security instead needed to be at a soccer match, a cricket match, or there was some other activity going on. And as a result, they would cancel national immunization days. They would cancel vaccination activities. And guess what? No surprise. Now we're getting polio cases there. And the prime minister himself had a meeting 2 days ago with Aziz Memon, polio chair in Pakistan, with WHO, UNICEF, with the Gates Foundation, and others. And he realizes there's a problem. He takes it as a personal, insult to the people of his country, that they haven't been able to get rid of it in Baluchistan. They didn't do a good job. He's appointed a woman now to head up the polio program. She's a well-connected, very bright, very intelligent, very personable former senator an appointed senator, not elected senator, I should say, in the Pakistani government. And she had led the program back when we get the cases almost to zero before. When you look back, back around 6 years ago, the cases were very low. She was the one in charge, and this is good. She's very committed, providing excellent leadership, and we're hopeful that we might be able to get in front of it. But we need to make sure the workers are secure. We need to make sure that we keep up all of our efforts to convince the mothers, the fathers, particularly the mothers, that the polio vaccines are safe, and that it'll help their kids prevent polio. So, the other thing in Pakistan, if you look at the pattern of cases, they have a strange election system there, at least it seems to me. Not that the United States election system isn't strange, but their election system is basically that it's similar to, the UK in some respects and others, but then again, it's different. Every 5 years, there needs to be a new election. A nationwide election. But what happens is the president of the country, who is more honorary, but one of his responsibilities is to call an election. And he does that sort of at the behest of the party that's about to be reaching 5 years. As soon as he calls the election, all of the government officials resign. The prime minister resigns. All of the chief ministers of the various states resign. And it goes up and down the line. The health ministers. And what happens is, suddenly you've got people running the program for 6 months who, are political appointments, don't really know what they're doing. Some do. I don't want to insult them all. But what happens is, every 5 years, you see the cases go up because of, lack of program execution. And that's, we just had an election about a year ago. And, so we're hopeful that, the numbers are still high. We're still going to get more cases between now and the end of the year. But we're hopeful that they had fairly successful national immunization days, what they call SIAs, which basically means, or SNIA, subnational immunization days, SNIDs. And the coverage rate's been pretty good, But again, we hope the numbers are right. We hope there aren't people, juicing the system. That does happen. It happens everywhere. So we're hopeful. But, I think to analyze progress in Pakistan, we really need to look at I think the numbers are important because everyone's a child to look at here in November, December, and January. But long about February, March, April, that's when we're going to see if the current effort is paying off. if they are in fact getting to these kids and if they are in fact going to have fewer cases. Let's move into Afghanistan. I'm shaking my head. Afghanistan obviously has been an area with insecurity for decades. With the Russian involvement, with the involvement of my country, with all of the others, with the insurgencies in Afghanistan. Afghanistan, for the most part, has had a fairly good eradication program over the years. People were willing to do it in most of the country, very successful, except the area of the country, unfortunately, closest to, which is closest to the population centers to Pakistan, Kandahar, Helmand, Nangarhar, some of those areas, not at all far from, some, key near Chandigarh, some of those cities in India. But anyway, those areas haven't looked at polio eradication as positively as the rest of the world. The Taliban is headquartered in Kandahar city. And what happened was, working with the other government and working with the Taliban over the last couple of years, since they assumed the de facto government is what we call them, we were able to get house-to-house vaccination throughout the entire country, except in Kandahar. And even then, it narrowed down to Kandahar city and a few smaller communities in Kandahar province. And what happened was, you could see that there weren't the cases elsewhere. They were doing environmental samples. There wasn't polio. Well, then the Taliban, about, I think it was August, I lose track of time sometimes, suddenly announced not only would there not be house to house in Kandahar, but there would not be any house to house vaccination anywhere in the country. This is absolute disaster for the polio program, because we also had this issue with refugees going back and forth from Afghanistan to Pakistan trying to push them all back to Afghanistan. So you had all this movement across the border. So it contributed to the cases, and around Karachi going up, it also contributed to more cases in Afghanistan. So anyway, they said, they not only said no house to house, they said women were not allowed to speak outside the home. It's in our societies, that's simply not the way things work. But we work in every country, and we're not done until we get it done in every country. So anyway, it's a lot of things have gone on, diplomacy and other things. I can't go into all the details, but fortunately, and not everyone is monolithic in even within the Taliban of thinking about the way their polio program ought to be carried out. But they backed off almost within 3 weeks, so that at first they said only mosque to mosque, which makes no sense, because one, people aren't all going to go to the mosque. Two, in a lot of these communities, women are not allowed in the mosque, most of them, and it's the women who take the primary responsibility. So that was absolute disaster. The vaccination rates sure to go down. We see them going down, but fortunately, because of more moderate forces in the country, not moderate, more moderate forces in the country, they immediately backed off and said, we'll still allow site to site, which means that you can set up polio stations in different areas, but even to the point you can set it up at the end of an alley where homes are, a street where homes are, and go down and ring a bell or whatever. You can't ring on anyone's, I don't know if they have doorbells. You can't ring on, knock on anyone's door, but you can encourage them. Obviously, that's not going to be good. With we need to get back to house. So that's a huge issue right now. Fortunately, we're working with partners, working with others, but the Taliban is tired of being told by other countries, and Afghanistan in general is being tired of being told by other countries how to do their business. But in the end, it's about the kids, and in every other place we've worked, in the end, it's been the interest of the child that's won out. So I hope that happens. In Gaza, what a mess. We all watch the news, around the world, and the attack that happened a year ago at the beginning of October on Israel, a tragedy. And then we also look at, the tragic way that individual civilians have been caught up in Gaza, in all of the activities that have gone on. You know, despite all of that, and despite attacks on health facilities, everything else that's gone on, somehow, and a lot of diplomacy involved, and I know more about it than I can say, but they were able to negotiate with the Israelis, with the Palestinians, working with the UAE, other governments, UNICEF, and others. They were able to negotiate not days of tranquility. They wouldn't go that far. Hours, virtually hours of tranquility. And they were able to procure the vaccines. Rotary spent $500,000 helping to provide vaccines, you know, a part of the cost. And they had a goal of immunizing all of the children, all of the young children under the age of 10, and also provide the vitamin A to build up their immunity. And as a result, you know, everyone was really worried. I was worried, even though I'm not there, of the safety of the individuals. Would the tranquility stick? Would they still get attacked? And I don't know if miraculous is the right word, but they did 2 rounds in 3 different parts of the country, North Gaza, Central and South Gaza. And they reached 94% of the kids under the age of 10 who they hope to get vaccines to. You know, in all the bad news and all of the troubles in the world and whatever, you know, to me, that something Rotary started, we were able to have one glimmer of a bright spot in Gaza. And but by, you know, what Rotarians do and what people we work with do is work for peace and work for people to get along, try to, you know, all of the areas of focus of the Rotary Foundation, very successful in Gaza. And you know, then there was one polio variant case there, but you know, they fortunately had a very high vaccination rate beforehand of about 95%. And the one person who came down with polio actually was born in, it was either August or September of 23. So they hadn't been vaccinated yet before vaccinations were suspended. So we're hopeful. We need to do more there. We need to work with our partners to make sure other immunizations happen, because, you know, when you have those war zones, you have all the damage to the infrastructure, you got waterborne diseases. It's not a good situation. And I think everyone needs to pray for the people in that whole region that disease does not break out, not only polio, but others as well. We have these polio variant cases in Africa. It was another case. They let their guard down. The immunization rates went down. They particularly went down in areas of insecurity. And you know, even today, you know, they have not turned the corner, to be honest. Well, the cases are down, the environmental sampling's down, it is up, you know, which shows that maybe they're making progress. But you know, the underlying issue is there are pieces, particularly in northern Nigeria, where they're just not getting the job done. And some of it is poor performance of the program. Our partners, I have to admit, the WHO and the UNICEF have not kept the governments in those places to task, and as a result, they're having cases, and you know, I just read a report yesterday on fake finger marking, and I think you all, you know, they paint the pinky purple when a kid gets the vaccine, and sometimes the workers, you know, paint their pinky without actually giving the vaccine. Oh, just let me paint that so no one bothers you that your kid didn't get a vaccination. You know, awful, just awful. But you know, unfortunately, happened. So you know, we got to get this done. You know, Rotarians have been very generous. Rotary spends on this $150 million a year. Rotarians like you and efforts in your community, Rotarians around the world, raise about $50 million a year. And then the Gates Foundation gives us a 2-to-1 match. So therefore, instead of having $50 million to allocate to buy vaccines, to provide for the cold chain, to pay the frontline workers and transportation and other expenses, you know, there's $150 million. That's about 15% of the total amount that is spent. The Gates Foundation is the biggest contributor. The U.S. government is second. There's other governments, and fortunately, India assumes the entire expense of their vaccine program at this point. They're totally doing that, which is good. But anyway, Rotarians have, about 62% of the clubs participate. We hope for more than that. And again, frankly, a lot of the clubs who don't participate is India. And, I would hope that Rotarians in India would see the danger, particularly with these polio variant cases, of cases coming back to India. There's been a few mysterious cases, I'll put it at that, in India this year. I think 3 or 4. The government really hasn't issued reports. Some of the press has been very critical of the Indian government. I've had, back and forth with the India National Polio Plus Committee. We've met them. We've asked them how we can help. And these are what they call, they think it's people that just have total autoimmune conditions that, maybe, once always had polio. It's just very mysterious. I really can't answer it, but everyone agrees that because of the immunization rates in India, that you're probably not likely to get polio back. However, you ought to look at the immunization rates in your state, where you live in India, and I'm not sure exactly where, but they're available online. You could write to the India Rotary office and find out specifically the access where those numbers are. But some states have low immunization rates, which means the kids are susceptible. India is a lot providing the IPV, the shots in the arm, the inactivated polio vaccine. But India, you've gone 14 years officially without a case, although these couple of mysterious cases. But it could come back, and I think India needs to be vigilant. I think all of the Indian Rotarians need to continue to support the polio effort and stay educated. Have club programs on polio eradication. Invite your local health office to explain the immunization rates in your communities. We've always said it's only a plane ride away, and we found that out in the United States. I was last week in Bronxville, New York, which is just outside of New York City, but only 20 minutes from there, in a place called Rockville County, New York, on the Hudson River, big river that runs through New York. There was a case. It was a community with low immunization rates. A gentleman came down with it, never been out of the country. But someone brought it back, likely from Pakistan, likely from Lahore. And the kid had never been immunized for anything. The person had never been immunized for anything. And it was that close. And then they did the environmental sampling along the river. And it wasn't only in this community of the low vaccination rate, it had reached New York City. It had reached the rivers that surround Manhattan. It had reached, there's an island called Long Island, which is just east of, on the other side of New York. It had reached there. We had a polio variant case a week or two ago in Barcelona. We had some in Toronto. So it's still, one of the things we need to do to get this done is to really promote vaccinations in general. Rotary as a policy during COVID, the Rotary Board endorsed that. So, I'm not freelancing and saying this, but, I think it is concerned citizens of the community. The object of Rotary, I think if you read back what that says, I was pleased to hear it at the beginning of the meeting. It's well within our mission and remit as to what we ought to be doing. So, I remain confident. I want to thank everyone for all of their efforts. Rotary, continues to try to raise money. We continue to advocate to the governments of the world to support. We had a meeting 2 weeks ago, I think now. It was late October, a few days before our American election, with Bill Gates. We were out in Seattle, where the Gates headquarters is, and where he lives. We met only with the staff, but we had some time with Bill Gates, and he's 100% with us. The match expires in a couple of years. We talked about the renewal of that, and we talked about how we can work together to have accountability in the program, to have progress in the program, and to get this done. We have invested too much money to fail. We've invested too much money to see polio come back, And it would be a disaster for the world, a disaster for the children of the world. So we need to continue to be a little bit patient. We need to be continue our passion, but mainly we need to be persistent. We can't take our eyes off the goal. We can't take our eyes off what we're hoping to achieve for the children of the world. And with your help in India, and I know I see Nan from the UK, and I think I heard some discussions. Some other folks are in. I know some other folks are in the United States, but in all the countries you are, we need to continue to work together to get this done. So with that, I think you wanted to leave time for questions, and I probably went longer than you might have anticipated, but we turning it back to BJ?
Vijay, I think you are mute. You have to unmute.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for the wonderful insight into the polio issues that Rotary is facing and how we can move forward. Now we would go to the question and answer session. Anybody has a question, you can raise your hand. We'll unmute you and then you can ask the question.
Could be about anything.
Yeah. Christine, yes.
Yes. Good day, everyone. Good day, my president, Mr. VJ, PDG VJ. And thank you, the guest speaker that just came on to speak to us about the polio vaccination. My name is Rotarian Christine Mbaba. I'm representing Rotary Club of Abuja, Asokoro Diamond in Abuja, Nigeria. Though right now I'm based in New Jersey, United States. So my question is for the guest speaker about how much funding was allocated to the polio vaccination in Nigeria. I remember being in Nigeria. I was in Nigeria in 2020. That was during the pandemic, and we were celebrating the end of polio. And now I see that it has resurfaced. So I want to know, do you have an idea of how much funding has been allocated for the polio vaccination in Nigeria specifically? Because I would like to maybe see how I can come on board with the polio vaccination and see how we can, continue to combat this issue. If you could answer that question, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Christine. Hope it's not raining in New Jersey. Anyway, I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but I think it's in the range of $250 million that we've invested in Nigeria over the years. Specifically, we also fund something called an outbreak response fund. It's about where 46% of the 150 billion goes to. That is helping to provide immunizations when we do have an outbreak somewhere, and some of that money is being spent in Nigeria. We're still funding surveillance in Nigeria. It's very expensive to immunize the number of kids there. And I don't remember the exact number in Nigeria, but I'm sure it's equivalent to Pakistan, with its 45 million children under the age of 5. So every time we do an immunizations, it's our target is 45 million. In Nigeria, it's frustrating. It's frustrating. The area is, you're very familiar with the country, being from the capital of Abuja, but up in Sokoto, Samfari, up in those areas, we're just not getting the cooperation we need. We meet with some of the Rotarians from Abuja, Joshua, who you probably know, Tunji, and others. They go up and they meet with the religious leaders, the traditional leaders up in that area. They meet with the governments, but even the health minister of Nigeria, Dr. Muhammad Pate, who I've met a few times, and he's been in other positions. He's gone back to his country. He was with the World Bank in Washington for a while. They're not focusing on polio, and it's frustrating. I'm going to be going over in a few months with representatives of all the partners to try to encourage them to be a little more responsible. But Nigeria is, if I looked at all of my frustrations right now, I don't mean to pick on your native country, but it's frustrating. They can do a better job, and we need to have accountability. And Joshua is our polio chair there. I've been in touch with him, I think, 10 times in the last 2 days. The Rotarians are trying to work hard, but the government's not listening. They're not executing the program. So there's an expression that I don't know if it carries into India, but we need a come to Jesus moment, which is basically it's to be really blunt, things need to hit the fan to get everyone's attention to get it done in Nigeria. So it's I don't know if I'd say it keeps me awake at night, but issues coming out of there certainly every morning get the attention first thing. So, but it's about 250 million to answer the brief answer to my long dialogue here.
Yeah.
We want to go to Nan next, Vijay?
Nan, you have a question?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, Mike, as always, for an excellent presentation. You are so passionate and you work so hard on this. You have been doing it for so long. You put us all to shame. Very parochial question, because I'm very aware that we have a population that moves all over the world. People don't stay in the same place anymore. We did actually have a case in London a couple of years ago. Did you get any further information on that? Has that been has it been figured out where it came from, or is it likely to happen again?
Could happen again. We did have a case in London. There was a response to it. London has a pretty good, the UK has a pretty good immunization rates, fairly good, public health programs. And, there was some positive environmental sampling for a little bit, but it all went negative. We're not too worried. But I should say I don't know if it's publicly reported yet, but there was a case in Warsaw a few days ago. I found out about it a few days ago. So, it does pop up, and it wasn't wild polio virus, these polio variant cases. So, it pops up every so often. So, for the most part, in these countries where there's good immunization rates, they tend to be one-offs. So, it's a single instance. Someone usually who was never immunized somehow picks it up, and sometimes it's travel involved, sometimes travel by someone else that they don't know. But I think the UK is in pretty good shape because of their immunization rates. In any country that has, in any country, for everyone on the call, any country that has high immunization rates. That's why India is of increasing concern, because there are areas of the country that do not have good immunization rates. Thanks, Nan.
Thank you, Mike.
Jean, you can ask your question.
Hi, Vijay. How are you? I am Rotarian Jean Powell, Rotary Club of Sablamore in Jamaica. Classification, I'm an infection preventionist. I'm a doctor of nursing degree in infection prevention and epidemiology. So this topic is dear to my heart. And thank you, Mike, for an excellent presentation. Trying to find out in our region in the Caribbean, how have we been doing? Because we have, I think, an excellent immunization program ongoing when you check the rates. So I'm not sure if we've had any sightings in the last 10 years or 5 years. Anyone have any info?
Yeah, it's I think I get PAHO is the World Health Organization region. Yeah. I think that includes Jamaica. PAHO has been doing a good job in increased awareness for vaccinations. There were some problems in Brazil with lower immunization rates. We're very concerned about Haiti. As you know, it's no secret that Haiti is another area where there are lots of issues. And, Rotary's been extremely engaged with PAHO. I've had a couple of meetings with the head of the Pan American, Dr. Barbas. Wow. So, we're really good. But, again, in Jamaica, I encourage you to, invite to the club, the local health minister, the national health minister, do it by Zoom, do it by whatever, and find out their impressions. And it's just a way of re-emphasizing the people in the community that, other than parents, with young kids, care about polio, they care about these immunizations. So, Yeah. So, but I've never heard Jamaica specifically as having an issue, but there are
Right.
countries not far from you that do.
Right.
Yeah. And with the bad storms and, you sometimes have in that region, anything's possible.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. Vivek, you had a question. You had raised your hand. Vivek, you want to ask something?
Yeah, I was having a question from Mr. Mike. Mr. Mike, thank you so much. I'm an Indian national living in a past state in Nigeria. I'm a Rotarian in Nigeria. My fellow Rotarian Christine asked a question. So here we belong to the same Rotary Club Ulhasnagar Diamond. Yeah, in 1978 we have started Rotary Polio eradication in Nigeria, and so far Rotary International contribute approximately 268 million USD for this eradication of the polio. But still, as you said, that we are facing challenge in northern parts of Nigeria where the community people are not allowed to get immunization, forget polio, but basic immunization they're not allowed because of their religious faith. Somehow, my question to you, how any Rotary side, they have any strategy to how to tackle this, as PDG Joshua sometime year ago was try to make some kind of religious leadership together that they can be allow polio barrier to go inside and get people or children immunized, give them immunizations. Any policy has been set up or any strategy from Rotary International side?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I want to say I never apply a religious description to why we have refusals. I think there are individuals who happen sometimes to be in religious positions who advocate no vaccinations. But if you look at the basic tenets, the basic beliefs of every religion in the world, they're all, they don't believe in killing their kids. They don't believe in not taking care of their children. So I think labeling it as a religious issue is, I don't think helps us to get it done. Because one, I don't think it is the case, and two, I think it's just people trying to exert influence and show they're important, and it's egos more than anything. They want to show that people listen to them, and I think that's the root of it certainly more than anything that's in any of the tenets of any religion. But yeah, we absolutely need to work with leaders in local communities to get this done. We need to have people that are influential on them. We need to have them understand the consequences of not acting responsibly. And, we need to have them part of the effort, not separate and apart, but part of it. And we need to listen to concerns and needs. A lot of it is, they're upset and they're trying to, leverage that we shouldn't be just doing polio drops. We ought to be providing the malaria bed nets and the measles vaccines and all these other things. And they're absolutely right. We need to be doing that. And in Nigeria, one of the big concerns is the primary healthcare system is poor, and particularly in some of these areas of the country that have not been politically influential in the former capital and in the current capital. And it's a lot of it's about influence. We absolutely need a strategy. We've been meeting with UNICEF and WHO in about 2 weeks in New York, and the focus of the discussion is going to be how we can turn things around in Afghanistan, and how we can turn things around in particularly in Nigeria, and then how we deal with the other areas of militancy. But we've got to we've got to hold hands together. Basically, it can't be us versus them. We all need to work as a team and understand their goals, needs, and aspirations as well for their communities. All the things that Rotarians try to do with all of the work we do. We need to focus more on some of the communities where we're not successful.
Jitendra Verma ji, you have a question, please ask.
Hello. Thank you, sir, explaining the very good manner of polio roadmap ahead. I am Jitendra Verma, President Rotary Club Hinganghat from Rotary District 3030. Sir, I have a question. What Rotary International have strategy to overcome immunization in rural area? There is some hesitancy in people in rural area. Is there any strategies Rotary International have that we can communicate to in rural areas?
You talk about rural areas for polio eradication or rural
Yes, sir.
Rotary being
Oh, no,
in?
polio eradication. Polio eradication. Sir.
Yeah, we try to reach every area. We try to reach all the rural areas. In some rural areas, we have much better cooperation. In some rural areas, we are the we are the healthcare system. In fact, when some of these big diseases that happened, people needed to be tested for COVID. It was the polio funded positions that actually did that. And we if you know of rural areas where we're not carrying out the program, we need to know about that. It doesn't matter. A kid is a kid, whether they live in a community of 15 people or they live in a community of 30 million people. We need to reach every last child.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. We have CP Kate from Uganda. She has written that Uganda has recently registered a few cases, and District 9213 and 9214 are working with the Ministry of Health and partners to scale up the immunization program and expanding public health education and intervention.
Yeah, Kate, that's wonderful. Uganda is always a shining star in Rotary. Many engaged Rotarians. They're very influential with the government. And I'm really pleased to hear that you really need to work with the Ministry of Health, not only the national ministry, but in all the different regions. There are a few areas of Uganda, as you know, that have been a little more problematic, not so much with polio, but lots of different issues. And we need to focus on every community. And I want to thank Uganda. It's been the Rotarians, they do a great job.
You. And now I would request the president of Bengaluru Agora to present a memento to our speaker today. Just a minute, I'll just post it up. Yes, Jaipalji, you can just read it up.
Yeah. Thanks, Rotarian Vijay, for giving me an opportunity. I would like to present a certificate to Rotarian Mike McGovern. Myself, I'm Jaipal Reddy, President Rotary Bengaluru Agora. I was president for last year also, and I'm a charter secretary 22-23. Thanks, Rotarian Vijay.
So, Mike, this would be sent to you by email immediately after the meeting, and
Well, thank
this is as a token of your accepting our invite. Now, I would request President Pratik Shah to give a well-deserved vote of thanks.
Thank you, past President Vijay sir. First of all, I would like to thank the speaker for today, PDG Mike McGovern, who gave wonderful insights about polio and what are the challenges ahead. And it was a very good discussion. So thank you so much for joining us. And I would also like to thank the 14 Rotary Clubs which have come together to host this online Zoom meeting. I'll just talk about the clubs which are involved. So thank you, Thane Titans, E-Club of Winter Haven, Thane East, Bhubhaneswar Flamingo, Modasa from RIT 3055, Bengaluru Agora, organ donation from RIT 3234, Thane Ghodbunder Road, RIT 3142, Mr. Vikas. Then the 9th club, which is associated, is Thane Skyline. Then Navi Mumbai Airport City, Navi Mumbai Samaritans, Ulhasnagar, Nagpur Downtown, and Hinganghat. So there were 14 clubs from different Rotary zones and districts which have come together for this informative talk. And also we are thankful to Rotaract Club of Thane Titans, RIT 3142, Yogesh for Thane, to be part of this informative meeting. And thanks to all the members, Rotarians, and maybe ANs who have joined for this informative talk. And I think because of these kind of discussions, we spread awareness about a very prevalent, once a time, a very prevalent disease, polio. And these kind of initiatives and awareness will stop the disease from further spread. So let us together end polio now. Thank you so much for joining today and spending your precious time for this Rotary talk. Thank you so much. Thank you, Vijay sir, once again.
Thank you, Pratiksha. And
Thank you.
Mike, I would like to inform you, I would be failing in my duty if I don't thank two people without, means who have inspired me to have this meeting and connect to you. My basic inspiration was PAG and CP Sayyeda Simran from Interheaven Club, who inspired me to connect to you and get you for the meeting. And then again, Pratiksha, she wrote to me, if we are having a meeting on polio, she would like to join. And then that's how it moved out, and I was able to get your coordinates and I was able to connect to you, and you were graceful enough to accept and come here. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you.
And I think we should also thank Rotarian Jaipal Reddy, Bengaluru, who gave the certificate and presented it to Mike today. So we must thank him for doing that on our behalf.
Thank you, madam.
And any clubs have any announcements, any secretarial announcements from any clubs before we adjourn?
Can I just make one announcement?
Yeah, please.
Actually, we were not aware. We from Rotary Club of Nagpur Downtown recently went to Bali for an international fellowship and service project. And we also did an end polio campaign there because we were not sure whether, they have polio as a prevalent disease. So we carried some placards and asked the school children and interacted with the Rotarians there. But thankfully, they don't have any incidence of polio in their country. So that is just related to the polio talk today. Thank you so much.
Any other club wishing to have any announcements, club or any other announcement if anybody has? Okay, thank you. If it is not there, I would request the president of Modasa, Mohan Bhai Patel, to kindly adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, sir. Haji. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for giving a valuable information regarding the polio. Very good information and get together. It is nice for us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
The meeting room will remain open for another 10 minutes for fellowship. All can join. The meeting is formally concluded. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rotarian Vijay, for organizing such a wonderful meeting.
All welcome. And I have shared the YouTube link. And Mike, I will be sharing all the photographs and the YouTube link with you on email also.